George I was King of Great Britain and Ireland from 1714 until his death in 1727. He was also electorate of Brunswick-Luneberg, also known as Hanover. After the deaths of his mother Sophia and his second cousin Anne, he ascended the British throne. During his reign, the powers of monarchy were greatly diminished, and Britain began to move towards the more modern system of governance led by a prime minister. George was born on the 28th of May 1660 in Hanover in Brunswick-Luneberg. His parents were Ernest Augustus, Duke of Brunswick-Luneberg, and Sophia of Palatinate. Sophia was the granddaughter of King James I of England. George had 5 brothers and 1 sister. At birth, George was the heir to his father and his uncle's lands, but as his uncles married, this became more uncertain. With his uncertain future, his father took him on campaign of the Franco-Dutch War to test and train his son in battle. In 1679, George's uncle died, and his father became the reigning Duke of Kallenberg-Gottingen. George William of Celle, George's surviving uncle, married his mistress to legitimize his only child, Sophia Dorothea of Celle, but he had no more children. In 1682, the practice of primogeniture was put in place, which meant George would inherit all the lands and not have to share with his younger brothers. George married Sophia Dorothea of Celle, his first cousin, in 1682, and their marriage ensured a healthy income as well as the eventual unification of Hanover and Celle. Their first child, George Augustus, was born a year later, while George and his brother Frederick Augustus served in the Great Turkish War. In 1692, George's father was made an elector of the Holy Roman Empire. George and Sophia Dorothea had one more child, a daughter named after her mother, in 1687, but they had no more children after. They had become estranged, and George much preferred the company of his mistresses. Sophia Dorothea kept company with Count Philipp Christoph von Königsmarck. Königsmarck was eventually murdered. The couple later divorced, with Sophia Dorothea imprisoned in Alden House in Celle, where she stayed until she died. George also had children with his mistress Melusine von der Schulenburg, Louise Sophia, born in 1692, Melusina, born in 1693, and Marguerite, born in 1701. Ernest Augustus died in 1698, and George became the Duke of Brunswick-Luneberg, also known as Hanover, and a Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire. As it became more likely that the British throne would pass into the Hanoverians' hands, acts were put in place in Britain to naturalise Sophia, George's mother, and her heirs as English subjects. In 1705, George also inherited the Principality of Luneburg-Grubenhagen. In 1714, George's mother died, and Anne, Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, died also. George was now King of Great Britain and Ireland, but was unable to go to Britain until September of that year. He was crowned on the 20th of October. George's reign was met with much opposition, including by the Whig Party and the Jacobites. In 1717, during the baptism of the Prince of Wales' son, one of the sponsors for the child, the Lord Chamberlain, was verbally insulted by the Prince of Wales, and the Lord took this as a challenge to a duel. The Prince and his family were ordered to move out of St. James's Palace, and they moved into Leicester House. Though the father and son did later reconcile, they were never on friendly terms with each other afterwards. Over the years, the Jacobites attempted to gain control, but were unsuccessful, even when they were supported by the Spanish. In Hanover, the king was an absolute monarch, meaning he could make decisions as he pleased, and had control over everything. In Britain, the monarch was a constitutional monarch, meaning government held the real power. As the king grew older, the de facto first Prime Minister, Sir Robert Walpole, made much of the decisions for the king. On the 9th of June 1727, the king suffered a stroke while on his way to Hanover. He passed away on the 11th of June 1727, 2 days later. He was buried in Hanover, the last British king to be buried outside of Britain. George was ridiculed at the time by the British people, many believing him unable to speak English. However, George was fluent in English and could read, write and speak the language. His Lutheran faith also caused consternation with his Anglican subjects. In Britain, he was seen as wooden and conservative, but in mainland Europe, he was seen as progressive, allowing his critics to publish without risk of censorship. His personal letters showed a genial and affectionate man, in stark contrast with his public persona.